we are explaining that we understand the problem, we are demonstrating we know how to solve the problem, and then we're offering a solution that they can then take advantage of to help make that problem go away.
Okay, Reade, so how are things going?
Things are going great, Nikki. So we actually had a podcast published not too long ago. You guys may have caught the episode with One U. Really fascinating guy. He runs a product design agency, and there were a lot of takeaways from that we wanted to discuss. A couple of them on this week's episode. We felt like it really set up some of the topics that we had in mind that we wanted to bring onto the show. Nikki, do you mind if I just talk about some of the ones that really stuck out to me from that conversation?
No, go ahead.
So, One U is, I mentioned he's a really interesting guy. He's really smart about the way that he goes about product design. And one of the things he said to me was that we have to, so I'm going to use his exact quote. He said, understanding user needs is key to successful design. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And he said that when people open up an app or whenever they use a program or whenever they interact with something that's happening in the real world, think about like the freestyle Coke machine, right? So these are all things that a product designer had to come up with. And so one of the things that they'll think about is, well, how do people intuitively make decisions, right? And what are some of the things that they would expect to see, and what are some of the needs that they would have, especially as we talk about a B2B context. And I thought that was brilliant because we do that as marketers. And if you're watching this and you're leading marketing, then this is exactly the type of thing that needs to be on the forefront of your mind is, what are the needs? What are the problems? What are the concerns that my audience and my customers are facing right now? And you need to be creating content that addresses those things, right? Because if we're just talking about the things that our product does because we want to talk about us, well, then we're missing the point, and it's going to fall on deaf ears because that's not what people tune into a podcast for. That's not what people interact with content on social media. And if you can't get in front of new people by addressing the problems that they're dealing with, then you're never going to get them any further into the sales conversation. So that was the biggest takeaway from that podcast in my mind.
I love that. So basically, a lot of people I have found make this mistake where all they want to talk about is their way of doing things. This is their thing. And it's like, why don't you reverse that and talk about how it actually helps the client, the customer. So I really like how you brought that up. That is something I think a lot of people, they mean well by doing, but it definitely, like you said, it falls on deaf ears when they're listening and they're saying, well, how does this actually help me then? I see, and I'll be the first to admit, I actually struggle with this a little bit more because I do love our systems. It's literally my job to know our systems and be efficient. And some people, sure, they like that. It's an added value, but actually does it solve the problem? You can have the best systems and processes, but if it doesn't solve the problem, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
So yeah, Nikki, that's a good point, right? We as marketers, it's really easy, especially as a business owner, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you founded the company, you are deeply aware of all of the things that your product does, your service does, because it's your baby, right? It's the thing you've been like raising this thing and forming this thing. And we just want to tell the world about our stuff. And that's great. And there's a time and a place for that, right? There's certainly a place for product demos, and there's a place for, a walkthrough and a consultation and stuff, but that's not always most appropriate, and it's certainly not appropriate for every stage of the marketing funnel.
So Reade, that makes a really good point though. You just said there's a time and a place for those things, the product demos, things like that. But those people, it will be an empty room if you can't get them in. So let's talk about top, middle, bottom of the funnel. Okay, what I just said is top, right? So if you can't establish that you're helping someone at the top, they're never going to go to the middle. So let's talk about the different types of funnels.
We've talked about a funnel a zillion times, but if this is the first time that you are hearing about this concept, or if you haven't really heard it explained in detail, imagine a funnel, right? It's like an upside down pyramid, and every marketing strategy, every marketing journey has three phases. Now, there may be a million little micro steps in there, but there are at least these three major phases. There's top of the funnel. We also refer to that as the awareness stage. And that is when people are first coming into contact with you, in our context, on the internet, right? They're learning about you for the first time. A part of our marketing needs to always be going to getting in front of new people and new audiences. The next level down is the middle of the funnel. That's where we talk about the consideration stage. That's when they are in your marketing ecosystem. And by that, we mean specifically that they're on your email list so that you're able to more intentionally deliver messages to them. You can customize those messages based on characteristics of that particular prospect. That's getting into some advanced stuff, but that is something that you have the capability of doing if you've got a good marketing automation platform. But the middle of the funnel is when we're getting people to consider. They're now starting to weigh some options for what to do conceptually going forward to solve their problem. Then at the bottom, this is also known as the decision stage. Now they're actually weighing us versus them, right? Now the content needs to be about why we are better than the competition, or why we are better than doing nothing, which is actually what you are often competing against. You know, should we just keep doing this on our own or not doing anything about this? Or should we go with X platform, software, or service provider? So those are the three different phases of the marketing funnel.
I'll go ahead and tell you I think the most important is the middle, because people are aware of the problem. I think top of the funnel can be hard, especially for startups, because you don't know what these people are looking for, right? We don't have a lot of data. We don't have things like that. So by the time you get them in an email list, to me that's a win. It is a small win on the scale of bigger things, but they know I have a problem. And this company, this service, they know my problem. I can get value and benefit out of this. So that's why I think middle of the funnel, it is one of the most important. I will say bottom of the funnel, obviously, because that means cha-ching, that's money, right? But if you can't get them in the top and you don't know the issue and the problem that these people want to solve, that middle, you're missing so many opportunities, which leads me to a question. Reade and I we had this talk earlier today, and it's so valuable. And Reade, I'm going to ask it again. Why? Okay, I just established the people know. They know there's a problem. So yeah, I'll sign up for your newsletter. But what, statistically speaking, it is so hard. What did you tell me this morning? Right time, right place, right message, all those things to making it into one. So if you're not doing middle of the funnel marketing, here's what you're missing out on.
This is such an important concept that so many they'll skip over this, right? Let's say they understand what we just described about the top, middle, and bottom of the funnel in a marketing context. And they say, look, we're just trying to get people to the bottom as quickly as possible. And I understand that. You know, that's, to Nikki's point, that's where the cash register rings. And so what we try to do is we try to get new people, right? We get the top of the funnel conceptually. So let's get new people and let's get them to the bottom of the funnel. Well, there's a few different things. There's actually three different factors that are really, really critical to get somebody to actually move all the way through that funnel. One of them is that you are addressing the right audience. That means you're getting in front of them where they are, whether that's through targeting from an advertising perspective, or you're just in the right conversations on social media or some other method through search, for example. But you're getting in front of the right audience. The second factor is that you're hitting them with the right message. That's got to actually resonate. It's got to address those problems that you're describing, right? We know what problems they're dealing with. We need to address them. We need to let them know that we understand them and that we have a solution for them. And then the third factor that is impossible to control for, and you certainly can't force it, it's the right time. Well, now we're at like the conundrum of, well, we can get the right audience, we can hit them with the right message, but how do we do it at the right time? Well, you can get lucky, I guess, right? You can hit them with an ad and they're just like, yeah, we happen to be in budgeting season and we need to spend $100,000 on that, that service or that piece of software because we need it now. Well, that's maybe 0.001% of all scenarios. The rest of the time, they are either at the beginning of the discovery and like research phase, or they're somewhere in the middle, or they're maybe getting close to the end, but we could still be talking about months before they're actually ready to make a buying decision. All right, so then what do we do as marketers? How do we make sure that we're in front of the right audience with the right message at the right time? The reality is the right time means we have to be there all of the time. What's the best way to make sure that we're in front of the right audience with the right message all of the time? That's through email marketing. And where does email marketing take place mostly? It's in that middle of the funnel. It's a super long-winded way of explaining that, yeah, we got to get people into our email list, and then we need to be hitting them with a regular cadence of email communication where we are explaining that we understand the problem, we are demonstrating we know how to solve the problem, and then we're offering a solution that they can then take advantage of to help make that problem go away.
And there's plenty schools of thought of doing a boatload of ads, right? To get people intrigued, to be at the right place, to show your service. But let's talk about how, one, we don't disagree with ads. We just don't. We disagree only with ads. And in another previous podcast, I talked about putting all your marketing eggs in one basket. We don't want to just do one thing. But let's talk about the danger of just putting a lot of ads to one thing. Let's call it a landing page, things like that. Because what is the number one danger that we're at risk at when we do that?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. So you're right. We don't disagree with ads altogether. We just disagree with only using ads because of those three factors. If we think about the right time, right audience, right message, right time, we could potentially, through ads is probably the easiest way to get in front of the right audience, right? But it's not always that easy to understand what the right message is, especially on your first shot at it. Now, if we're putting out content really consistently, it's easy for us to test a lot of different things to determine what the right formulation of that message is. But if we're running ads and it's just a few variations of one, piece or one bit of creative, or maybe it's a video, we have to kind of hope that message will resonate. And then again, we haven't controlled for the right timing with that at all. So we're really focusing heavily on just one aspect of those three keys. And we're not giving ourselves much of an opportunity to test to determine if we're hitting them with the right message. So there is a correct time and place for ads. And what we like to do is to use that to move people into a middle of the funnel offer. And I don't like to over-index on one particular piece of creative because we don't know exactly what's going to be the thing that gets people to actually join our email list. It might be because they just want to get the newsletter. We positioned the newsletter as an advantageous enough addition to their knowledge base that they'll get on our email list. It might require something a little, like a webinar, like a training, something that's more interactive. It might require something that's downloadable, a PDF, something like that. There's a lot of different things that we want to test, and frankly, all of them might make up the total pie of our lead generation efforts. And we don't there is no winner. We just need to do them all.
Yeah, and let's talk about another benefit of middle of the funnel, which is retargeting. So define that, talk about how we use that. And again, a huge benefit of middle of the funnel that doesn't have it, retargeting cannot happen at a top of the funnel. So capturing that audience and retargeting. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so quick explainer for, what is retargeting. It used to be called remarketing, and the idea is that you are hitting a specific, we'll say a person with an ad, or they visited your website or whatever in a way that we can cookie them. Now, cookie means that we have used the digital magic of the internet to know that they've been to our site before, and so then we're going to follow them around the internet with some more ads. The reason that works really well is because of that rule of 7, which is that it takes an average of 7 interactions with a brand before an individual makes a purchase. That is not a rule. It's a rule of thumb, right? It's not a law of the internet or a law of the universe, but it's a rule of thumb. So it allows us to then go hit them with a different message, another message, and follow them around. It does help with the timing thing, right? Being in front of them at the right time. It doesn't solve for everything necessarily, because you're still talking about a short window. And then I can talk about the X factor of the challenges with cooking devices and stuff like that, if you think we should go into that.
Yeah, let me clarify. You can cookie and retarget people at the top of the funnel. It's just not super advised because what our whole entire business is made of, the middle of the funnel, they trust us. We want to build a trustworthy
Right.
brand. We're not just gonna, if someone opens a cold email, we've all seen our spam folder where, oh, you open, last chance. That's fine. But again, I don't know this brand. This brand has never been in front of me. I got on some sort of email list. But when I say, you know what, I want to read this email, it forms a trust. And us, as the people putting out the content, you do have to be careful. And we have to be careful on our clients' behalf as well, to not spam these people's newsletters, or spam the client's inbox. We are very diligent because we are trying to solve a problem. As marketers, that's what we do. We solve problems. We're not just here to get a quick dollar. And that's and I truly mean this, that the clients that we work with, we are brand builders. We're not just trying to sell these things one off. We are building brands. We are helping solve problems. So I did want to clarify. I absolutely know you can retarget people at a top of the funnel. We just don't advise it because to me it cheapens the brand.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes back to the idea of putting all your eggs in a basket that doesn't address all 3 of those key factors, right? And so, yeah, it can work if you have like a highly commoditized product. I think that's, just to clarify, Nikki. I think we are almost always talking to a B2B audience, right? And so very rarely are we talking about these short-term, quick transactional purchases. There are a ton of really great experts to talk to about B2C, direct to consumer type of sales driven digital marketing using advertising. It's not really what we do. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I run a law firm and we do, estate planning. That's not a type of purchase that a one of your clients is going to make on a whim because they saw an ad 2 or 3 times on the internet. So that's what Nikki's talking about, and that's what we're discussing here.
For the people who listen to this podcast or this clip, if you had one bit of information that someone could change today, we're not moving mountains, but when it comes to middle of the funnel, what is one thing a listener on social media or this podcast can do today that would have a little change in middle of the funnel?
Yeah, my number one bit of advice when it comes to doing better middle of the funnel marketing is to do whatever you can to stay consistent. If that means that you have to publish a little less often or a little less frequently than you want, then that's what you should do. What I mean by that is if you think that you can, if you want to publish a newsletter every week, and you've never done that before, my strong recommendation is that you create whatever it is, 4 newsletters that you think you're going to publish for the next 4 weeks, and you stretch that out over the next 2 or 3 months and prove to yourself that you can consistently publish and that you can consistently stay ahead of your publishing schedule. And then you can increase the frequency. No one's ever gotten angry because you started giving more helpful content. So start at a place that you can do so consistently. And if that's the only thing you change, it's going to make a huge impact on the results end of all this stuff that you're doing from a middle of the funnel perspective.
Okay, Reed. So we've been talking a lot about middle of the funnel. So let me ask you, what are some of the best practices we've seen from experience of getting people from, okay, they're already in our top of the funnel, they already follow us on social media, things like that. How do we get them to the middle of the funnel?
The most important thing when you are thinking through how do we move people from our top of the funnel audience and get them into the middle of the funnel, which means we need an email address, right? Like we need them to give us their contact information in exchange for more information. We talked about how to do that with just a great newsletter, right? Like if you've got a really compelling newsletter that you're publishing consistently, and you've got a nice looking landing page that explains the benefits and what a reader will learn, sometimes that's enough. In fact, that's sort of the low hanging fruit that we start with. But let's just talk for the sake of having some creative brainstorming together and for the audience. Lead magnets is obviously the term that comes to mind. But then what does that mean, right? We need to create a lead magnet that gets people to look at a landing page and say, yeah, heck yeah, I'll get on their email list if it means I get this thing. So with a number of our clients, we will recommend that they take all of their best assets, right? Like their best pieces of content and package it into one big bundle. I'll give you an example. We had a client who had a series of videos that they had put into some like free trainings that they had done for I think it was for like a few workshops or lunch and learns, but they had them recorded. So we said, okay, let's grab those. And then they also had some checklists that they had actually used like in the doing of their service that they had given to some of their clients at a recent event. So we said, okay, let's grab those. And then they had a backlog of blog posts. So we go through the backlog of blog posts and we pull out, the most popular ones and we put those into a nice looking PDF. So now what we've got is we've got a lead magnet, which is a free training and a handy checklist and a PDF download of I think for that particular instance, it was like a walkthrough of how to accomplish X, Y, and Z within your business, right? So it was like this no-brainer deal. It's like, if you mean all I got to do is give you my email address and then I get all of this, it's like, yeah, heck yeah, I need all that. That's going to make an impact on me and my business right now by having that information with the X factor of, hey, I've learned a lot from this person on social media already, in the top of the funnel. And so I trust this person and I've got this additional content that I'm going to be able to use and leverage. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the right way to think about what is a great lead magnet. It needs to be a no-brainer. You got to over deliver. That's your first transaction that you're engaging in with that prospect. That's their first purchase because they're trading something. They're not trading dollars yet, but they're trading their contact information. And so we want to make sure that that's a good deal for them because we know it's a good deal for us.
Yeah, and it's a good temperature check to see if you put this extravagant thing out and Okay, no one bites. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily that it's bad content. It's okay, maybe it's not the right in front of the right people, right? So that gives us kind of a temperature check to say, why is this not selling like we wanted to, or not selling, but why is this
Right.
the
Not
exchange is so
converting.
little?
Yeah.
Exactly, not converting. So that's great. And us as obviously marketers, we get to say, well, it didn't convert because it's not consistent, like you said, or it didn't convert because we didn't get in front of the right people. It was too hefty. They had to get two things. It was too overwhelming. We have these talks all the times with our clients of, they want to give, they want to help. These people are thought leaders. They want to help this issue, but we have to come in and say, giving, 45 things away, it might be overwhelming. Let's break it down. Let's do a
Sure.
series. Let's do stuff like that. And that is where the strategy and Reade is so good at. And that's where that comes in. So I think that's fantastic.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. If you enjoyed this, then you should check out this link above my head here for the most recent video that we did. And if you think you'd like to learn even more, then this link would be a perfect video just for you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you click on this link right here. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you on the next one.